everyone, welcome to another video. So I wanted to talk about the importance of creativity. It's something where people know that creativity is important. People know it's an extension and it's an expression of the things you're feeling, and it's a valuable hobby, a thing that you can do in your spare time. But creativity for a lot of people has been seen as just a hobby, just as something that's trivial and something that you do to, say, relax, or in the bigger sense, something that you use to make a job, to make a kind of career, or to make money, which in itself has certain pitfalls for beings who need the creative experience for more of a sort of health-related, mental health, kind of emotional health reason. Because I've found that the more creative hobbies I have and the more creative things I do, the more I share and express things that I'm feeling, generally the more peaceful I feel, and the more happy I feel, the more healthy my body and every sort of aspect of my life becomes. So the thing about creativity is, if you think of the big long-term goal of what a creative form of art has, it leads to a feeling of being overwhelmed by, how can I sell this? How can I make money out of it? How can I turn this into a job? Because if you're just drawing and you're beginning to learn how to draw and to share, say, music or the thing that you're passionate about, if you look at other people who have been doing it for thousands of hours, for many, many years, if you look at those people who are doing that thing and they're selling their artwork, or they're selling their albums, the musical experience, and they're doing big tours, and the idea of the celebrity world and social media influencers and things, it's people who in a lot of cases have crafted a particular skill for a long, long time, and you look at it and obviously people make it look so easy. But if you look at something like art, it takes thousands and thousands of hours, and you need to know thousands and thousands of things in order to do a certain kind of artwork, a certain sort of art piece. It's the same with music. Like a composer, someone that's creating music, once you get very good at understanding how music works and chord structures and chord progressions and different things like that, it becomes very effortless. But to someone who only knows the real basics, there are thousands and thousands of things they need to know before they'll be able to create in that same kind of way, from a technical point of view. And learning those technical things has to come from a curiosity and a kind of a passion, following a desire for constant continual improvement. And if the goal starts out with the creative experience as being, how can I make money out of this, how can I share it, you end up a lot of the time cutting the corners and not learning all of those core fundamental foundation skills, and you end up with a world where everything's very tacky and not very it's lacking that pure sweet soul that true artists who have really crafted the skills have, the people that we know as the famous artists and musicians and creators and designers. A lot of the time it's people who have spent many years within their own space, not necessarily sharing it, but really developing that creative energy and finding out what it is that they have within them, and really loving it and owning it and being with it and letting it grow like a plant, growing from that small seed and allowing it to become a big tree. So I want to encourage creativity just for the sake of creativity, because the practice in itself has more of a benefit than the result of the thing that you get out of the end of it. So for me, when I always played piano and played musical instruments, it wasn't really about the performance or the ability of being able to play piano, although a lot of people obviously enjoy that and people see that as a valuable thing. But it was more about how I felt when I was practicing, or how I felt when I was in that musical space, or even just listening to the music. It gave me this feeling of safety and peace and joy. It took me to a a distant land that was where all my worries and all the kind of the problems of the world didn't really exist. And it was this very beautiful escape from the things that I couldn't handle at the time when I was younger and as I was learning music. And out of that, I've now grown into this experience where I can go to a musical instrument like a piano on a street. While when I was traveling in Korea and Japan, there were a lot of these sort of train station and sort of in the middle of the street kind of pianos, and I would just sit down and play and improvise. And I really, really loved just playing. I just close my eyes and just go into this very deep sort of trance-like state, and I would just let my arms move and let the hands kind of flow. And if you can get into that space, you just relax into it. It was in no way about performing to people, and I'd gone so beyond the caring about what people think. I just zone out into this space where it's just me and the music, and I'm just expressing all these emotions and allowing all these energies to flow through my hands into the into the hammers that then hit the strings, and then that reverberates around, and then people get to experience that, me being at home in my most sort of homely place. And it's always been pure because I never wanted to make a career out of piano playing in terms of performance. I never saw that as a goal. It was more a case of I want to develop the skills so I can just play and just keep playing and have this feeling all the time. And after many years of practicing, I got to that point, and it's become my sanctuary. And a lot of people who have a particular creative skill, it becomes the sanctuary that you come back to when life gets challenging, or even in your sort of daily practice of maintaining kind of good mental, emotional health. Whatever's happening in the day, you say start the day with that creative task, or you end the day with a creative task, or you even just think about the creative task, or you listen to it, or say if it's a drawing thing, you look at it and you just feel that it's nice, everything's fine, which is really what meditation is for people. But creativity is it's a form of the thing that people call meditation, but it goes into this deep space, and it's more available than necessarily being able to sit cross-legged in the traditional meditation sense. Because in the Western world, where everything's busy, people can't always access that kind of spaciousness where you can do that kind of meditation. So the meditation of the busy Western world, especially people who live in cities, who have busy jobs and busy work lives, busy families, like parents, and lots of responsibilities. The meditation of this modern era is the creative arts, not just the traditional things like piano and guitar and drawing pictures, but all forms of creativity. Whether it's making food, cooking, or gardening, writing stories and writing books and poems, and making beautiful pictures online. A lot of people are using that creative skill on the sort of social media platforms. That kind of energy is being funneled into creating beautiful designs for, say, websites or Instagram stories and things like that, or making babies is another experience where you're using the creative energy ideally with the energies of love to form this being and grow it and nourish it, and it's a creation in a sense. It's very deep. So I wanted to convey the idea of don't make the money side and the business side of it the goal of it when you're pursuing a creative task, because the money then becomes a distraction, and you quickly become disappointed when you realize that you, say, being a beginner, even if you're fairly good, you're sort of on that beginner level, suddenly extending it and then competing in a way in the kind of the business money world, competing with other people who have thousands more hours of experience and thousands more, say, business experience of promoting and marketing themselves, and they might have got to a point where they really believe in themselves so much in that way, where they can share things very confidently and passionately, and they've built up a certain presence, and you can't necessarily compete with that when you're a beginning artist in a way. So once you've created this sanctuary within yourself, this beautiful energy, this beautiful feeling, and this extension of this deeper part of you, then you have a thing that you love so much, and you begin to allow it to overflow within you like a cup. It's like the energy is this like water in a cup. It's flowing in, and it's, if you start off with a little bit of that creative energy, you start drawing a few pictures and you start giving it away too quickly, whether it's for free or for money, you end up with an empty cup, and you feel like you're not getting enough of it for yourself. So one of my things is you got to give it to yourself and experience how it feels, and let it sink into you. Fill your cup up with that thing. So if it's drawing, just draw everything that you really want to draw. Don't make it about drawing what you think is what you think's popular, and what you think will sell the most, or what you think is in fashion, or what you think people would want to buy. People think, what is it that I've always wanted to draw? And it might be something that the world doesn't really want, and that might be where your niche becomes, because you might think, well, no one would want to see pictures of doodles of pencil sharpeners. And you could say, well, that's silly, but for some reason when I was a child I always looked at all the different pencil sharpeners and I thought, wow, pencil sharpeners. And you might be the crazy pencil sharpener guy that becomes very famous and influential through your passion for pencil sharpener art. And because you never know, and obviously all these random things, there could be a reason that why you suddenly like pencil sharpeners. So through going within without the judgment on yourself to say, no one will make money out of, I'm wasting because the society would tell you you're wasting your time drawing pencil sharpeners. No one ever wants to see that. You'll never make any money out of it. And the voice of the fear comes through. But when you take the money away from it and say, this is just me building up my sanctuary, this is me learning who I really am and learning what I like. And it might be that you draw a load of people, for example. And I don't really do the art experience too much. Although I like it as sort of in infrequent bursts of are the most fun for me. But if you're drawing a certain kind of thing, you might realize that actually you always thought you should be drawing people or faces or bodies or animals or something, but you really just wanted to draw waves. You wanted to draw the wind, or you wanted to draw nature, and you might realize that after drawing 50 faces that actually you hate drawing faces, and the only reason you ever drew faces was because art teachers or the world expected you to do that. And you might realize that this isn't for me, and I just like drawing pencil sharpeners because I'm the pencil sharpener drawer. Stay with me on this because this is going somewhere. And I like to start a creative task with this feeling of discovery and curiosity, and thinking that I'm going to discover something about myself that I didn't know and that I don't know yet. And when I find that thing out, it's going to bring me closer to the eventual moments when I can share this thing that I'm forming within myself. And then when it's so abundant within me and I love it so much that it becomes effortless, which I'm finding now with things like music and some of the things that I've created in my life. You become so abundant with it that effortlessly it just bursts out of you, and you have so much that you go, everybody have it, and you give it away for free, and people go, wow, this is so good, and you go, I will charge you 300 gold coins for that. And the next thing you know, you've got thousands of gold coins, or whatever the thing is that you want. And then you start to experience that feeling of like, I've put this sanctuary, I've built the sanctuary within me, and other people love that sanctuary too. It's almost like you're building this cave, and everyone can come and visit you in this cave, and you've decorated it beautifully and you've made it amazing. And then you take little bits of the cave and you start selling it. And that's the next part of the experience where you say, well, when I start to share it, how much do I love my sanctuary, and how willing am I to let others change it, and alter it and judge it and criticize it. Because when you preemptively share your creative talents and passions and things before you've really fallen in love with it and appreciated it yourself, you're looking for external validation through your creative outlets, and then that external validation leads to you kind of disowning your own sanctuary, where you realize that it's been vandalized and you allowed the vandalization. You go, come on everybody, yeah, it's my happy cave, but feel free to, here's a marker pen, you can all vandalize the walls, who cares, oh yeah, great suggestion. I find that I think I experienced this a bit on YouTube, where people would go, you should do your videos like this. And I noticed this a lot where my brother, who now makes videos, he has his own channel. There's some people on the comment section, and he doesn't ask for people's feedback, and he doesn't care. And he's going to do his thing, and he's very talented. But there's people in the description saying, oh, I don't like this music, it's not very good, you should use better music, or it's oh, the video would be better if at the end you did this, or oh, maybe you could make the voiceover a bit louder. And then you get like someone else that's saying like, oh, I really love the voiceover, or oh, I really love the music, or whatever. And you realise that it's all just a load of nonsense. And but if you care about that validation because you don't believe in it enough yourself, it's like when you're halfway through decorating something and someone comes along, you can go, no, let me do my decorating, or you can go, well, yeah, here you go, here's a paintbrush, here's a permanent marker, do what you want. And too much help from other people, not having that boundary that says, this is my creative sanctuary. If you don't have that boundary on that, you quickly find that the thing that you thought was your sanctuary has transformed into this sort of ugly place that you don't feel homely anymore. You don't feel at home at anymore, and you don't want to be there anymore. And I experienced that a little bit with a lot of the creative things I did. It also happened with YouTube quite a lot, the YouTube videos and all the different kind of things that I was doing, where I came into the whole experience of sharing my creativity very early because I just had this vegan passion. I wanted to make videos and I wanted to do things. And I just took loads of people's feedback, and I took a lot of other people's input, and I listened to other people's opinions too much. And then very quickly I realised that everything I was doing wasn't really me. It was just this kind of what I thought that the world wanted and what I thought people were expecting me to do. And this kind of purity thing came through, especially where I was doing something meaningful that I thought was going to change the world and help people, and make videos about veganism. And as I was making those videos, it became, oh, I don't want to disappoint the people who want vegan videos. But really, there was this feeling of, actually, I'd like to just make a video where I teach everyone how to juggle. That would be fun. That'd make everyone laugh. Something like that. And there are plenty of people who do that. They mix the channels up and stuff. But I always felt this sort of feeling of guilt, feeling like, this is everyone else's sanctuary, and they probably don't want a juggling video. They want whatever it is that I imagine that they want. And who knows that, if I'd have made that juggling video, it might have really brought some joy and happiness into the world and inspired people to do things that they didn't realize they could do. And so stay tuned for that juggling video. It's going to come someday. All those little things. And the hilarious thing is, all these things that seem irrelevant, it's a bit like the idea of, I'm going to do a pencil sharpener series in my artwork, and it will just be random. And you could say, this is pointless for, my job, business, whatever, my YouTube channel. I used to be the guy that draws paintings of cats, and now I'm going to do pencil sharpener series. You could think that it's bad, but you could bring a whole new audience of people who love pencil sharpening drawings, for example. And or juggling videos. You could bring the juggling enthusiasts into your vegan world, And all of a sudden, all the jugglers are going vegan, and you could realize that actually, while you thought it was unpleasant to the preaching to the converted, the people who are already vegan who don't want to watch juggling videos, you could go, well, the juggling people might need to see vegan videos because it might be beneficial to them, the animals, the planet, everything, etc, etc. So I now see that it could be this big burst of new ideas and things that can come, and new appreciators who can see you in a different way, which is why I wanted to make my sharing more holistic, in the sense where I start to share all these different aspects of me, because I'm a very multifaceted, multicolored, multi-dimensional being. And my life is a big portfolio of lots of different things that I've dabbled in and mastered and done different things, and it's all very fun. So when you're doing creative things and you start out with too much perfectionism, you very quickly start hating the process, because the judgment of yourself comes in, and you never feel that satisfaction of, oh yeah, go me, I've done something that's really good. Because you're saying, it's not good enough, I should do more, I should work harder. And when you have that association with a particular creative outlet, and creativity can be very vast, it's not just the art sort of thing. But when you start judging yourself over and over again, you really burn through the joy, and you end up in this resentment, sort of frustration, anger place, where the thing that you used to love is no longer there, and now it's just a load of series of actions, and those actions have no meaning for you anymore. So it's almost good to start off with the goal of the imperfection and say, look, I found another, with a sort of a forgiveness mindset, and say, I found another thing that's not perfect. Go me, I'm inspiring the world to celebrate their uniqueness and celebrate their imperfection, because that's a good thing to represent, isn't it? To say, well, here we are. We're in this world where nothing is perfect, perfect love seems not to be here, and here we are. And, there's a time and a place for refining skills and becoming more professional with things. When you've done a million drawings, inevitably, the level of output becomes much higher. But it's not even something you have to think about, because you've got so much experience that you just know, rather than nothing that I do is as good as this other person that everything seems to be perfect with. And it's like, well, you haven't had those 6,000 hours or whatever, or 20,000 hours that they've had in that particular area. So be gentle with yourself. One of the things with this idea of Kaizen, the small steps leads to big things, gently and slowly, in a way that's fun and easy, and tiptoeing around the fear part of the brain that says, new thing's scary, what if people judge me, what if I get hurt? It's going, no, just one step. And the practice I always share with people who want to get into creative things but feel like they don't have any capacity in their life to do it, it's to say, find 1 minute in your day in some little pocket that you can find, and in that tiny moment, do the smallest, simplest, most pointless thing related to that thing. So it might be with drawing, it might be to have a pad of post-it notes and have it in a place that you sit down. So, but instead the desk that you always sit down and do your work, or whatever the thing is you do. Or even on your phone, you could have like a notebook thing, like a notepad diary app or something. And you just spend 1 minute on that thing. You open up a new post-it note or a new tab or whatever, and you just write for 1 minute. Or draw for 1 minute. If you're writing stories, you could write stories, or you could do sketches, or, if you're doing it on your phone, you do it with your finger, and you say, I'm going to draw a cat, and it's going to take me 1 minute, and I'm going to do a 1 minute cat. And if you keep doing that, you might have a load of very pointless drawings, or a load of pointless stories or whatever that don't make any sense and don't really have any effect on the world or any effect on you necessarily. You might not feel like you're getting better or you're, developing a skill, but you're building up a positive association and a happy habit, something where you feel good about doing something. And you've deliberately said, it doesn't matter if it's imperfect. What matters is that I'm doing it, and I'm doing it every day, and I'm trying to enjoy it. And you can find a lot of satisfaction in this, whereas spending hours and hours and hours doing something with all these negative feelings that make you feel very sort of worthless and not good enough because you're comparing yourself to other people and you're saying, oh, if only I could do better, and then you overdo it. With that practice, you just say, no, 1 minute's enough. 1 minute's enough to get me there. And after 1 minute, after a few years, it doesn't have to take that long, but after a few years of doing a 1 minute drawing, at your desk or in the toilet for a minute, you just sit down and you flush the toilet and you go, now it's my time to draw, or whatever. You find that little place, and all of a sudden you might have, say, a year might pass, and you might say, well, now I've got 100 drawings, and I've got something. I've got this powerful habit, and I've learnt a lot about what I like and what I don't like, and what is important to me and what isn't. And because you've got that habit, the chances are that you're going to be willing to devote 10 minutes. Maybe you might sit at the desk and say, I'm going to make 10 minutes because this really is something. There's something in this. You might find the other side of it, that is that it isn't worth it, and that you don't enjoy it, and that you've given yourself, say, a year of just doing this 1 minute thing, and that 1 minute is very tiny. And you could do it with a lot of things. You could have, say, 1 minute of a music thing, 1 minute of an art thing, 1 minute of creating something online, or something, a design thing, or a website thing, or a cooking kind of thing. I'm going to spend 1 minute trying to figure out a good recipe or something. If you just spend 1 minute every day writing out recipe ideas, what would happen if I put beetroot in an energy ball or something? You go, oh, that would be quite nice. And you just write all these ideas. It only takes you a minute. But then after doing that experimental phase for maybe a month, where you spend 10 minutes doing 10 different things at different periods in the day, and you just sort of remember to do it, and you don't beat yourself up, and you don't criticize yourself if you can't, and if you forget, you just say, tomorrow I'll try again, and that doesn't matter because it feels so irrelevant, it's so pointless. It's like, skip today, who cares, just do it tomorrow. And you don't feel the guilt, and you don't feel any worthlessness. You just go, this is just a fun thing I'm doing. And really, it doesn't matter what the thing is, but just that practice is quite fun. But through this experience, you get to experiment and find out what it is you do like and what it is you don't like, and then you've learned something very valuable. And that's something that I was always taught about, is saying, there's lots of things you're curious about, go for it. Whatever it is, really just go for it. Because you might, it's like all these things you think they might be fun. Go for it for a couple of weeks. There's no harm, and you just give yourself that permission to say, this isn't for me, and stop. One of the obstacles of the world is people have been trained into making big decisions and big long-term commitments. Like a marriage. People make very quick decisions in these kind of areas, but then they have very big consequences that become very sticky to get out. Making a job kind of decision, or a marriage decision, or a living in a certain area, or buying a house or something, going to a university to study or something. These are big decisions that have a big implication on your life, and very young people who don't necessarily have that wisdom, and they don't necessarily have good guidance available to them in a way they can understand. They are in a sticky situation where they make a decision based on not having enough information, and just being like, quickly in this fight or flight space where you make a bad decision and then you go, I'm stuck in this forever. I've always liked having this skill, which is being very light-footed, where I can, just like a sort of a butterfly that flies away very light, you step into something and you step out and you step in, and you put your right hand in and your right hand out, and you shake it all about, and everything's fun. And when you do that, you then say, I'm free to explore, I'm free to experiment, my curiosity is okay. And you need to give yourself permission to have that curiosity, because when you were young, the chances are that when you went to school and when you had parents who might have been a little bit strict, they said the curiosity is dangerous, it's bad, it will get you into trouble, and you therefore have shut your creativity away and your curiosity, and you said, this is dangerous, I'll be told off if I do this, or it's a waste of time, it won't make me any money. And so people go, I should only focus on the things that the world says is valuable. Which, sooner or later that bubbling energy is going to want to come out, and it might come out in a way that you don't want it to come out. So you might as well start expressing the energy so it doesn't come out in the form of something kind of dis-ease or, discomfort in your life, like a big marriage explosion or something, or a midlife crisis or something. Let the energies flow naturally, so experiment and see what feels good and what doesn't feel good, and then you can sit and you can start writing these things down and go, I experimented with this for 2 weeks, I did 1 minute of doing it and it felt meh, I can stop, and then I did this other thing and it felt very good, and it felt, and I want to do 3 minutes of this now, and you be very gentle with yourself. And there comes a point where some of these things that are really meant for you, you go, this isn't enough to do this 1 minute. I'm now in the habit of doing this every day. But 1 minute, that's not nearly enough. I need to be doing this for 10 minutes. I need to be doing this for an hour a day. And then you start going, I've found the gold. I've found the thing. I've been sifting around and I found the gold. And this gold, I'm going to keep going in this direction. And then you start to know a bit more about who you really are and what you like. And there's something in that. And you go, I just can't stop myself doing these drawings or writing these writing these stories or whatever the thing is. And you go, there's something that this experience has for me that's worth pursuing. And that's when you, rather than investing in these big things, like the idea of buying a load of, let's say you have this idea, maybe I'll become a famous YouTuber, and you buy a load of camera equipment and it costs a sizable amount of money. And you've got all these gadgets and things, and you get everything ready. Or it's like you're going to be a professional musician and you've got microphones and big instruments everywhere, and you've got your music studio and you've rented out the local band and you're all ready to go. And then 3 weeks go by and you realise it's not for you, and you've got all this junk, and then people have to sell it and feel guilty over how they bought too much stuff. And you go, well, there'll come a moment where you can do all these things for free, more or less. You get post-it notes for a very small, cheap kind of level. When you go, my life really needs to have a lot of art in it, that's where you go, of course, I need to be buying good pens and pencils and colouring things and drawing pads, and this is really worth it because this is my life, this is my joy, this is my passion. And that passion and having that purpose will take you to magical places. It's your ticket to freedom through the creative arts. So when you find that thing, I know a lot of people now are starting to really find those things, and you really go for it and you say, well, how can I make this bigger in my life? And it means you have to start clearing things out of your life, clearing away the space of the old things that don't serve you anymore, the things that you don't benefit from anymore, the old kind of resentment stuff and the old kind of baggage and the stuff that you always do because you sort of feel like you should and you always did it, and the old traditions. And it's saying, this stuff is baggage and this is stuff that's holding me back from being able to do this thing that I really want to do. So it's starting to do a bit of a decluttering of your life and the way you prioritize your day and the way you structure your day, and say, let's start again from zero. I need to get rid of these old things, like a physical tidying, get rid of the old things so there's space for the new things. And now's the time when you've got those things that you always felt like you should have done and you wanted to do, and you sort of kind of would have enjoyed it, and maybe you couldn't because of children and jobs and time and money and all these things. It's time now to say you can do it, and you will find a way to it, and that creativity will bring you such joy that it really will take you to something very magical. And you want to start looking at the excuses you're telling yourself of why you can't do that thing as much as you like to, and say, for some reason I keep blaming not having enough money or not having enough time, and it all comes down to some kind of scarcity thing. It's like the idea of, I don't have enough of money, I don't have enough of the time, and I don't have enough, and I have too much pressure from other people and it's all their fault, and you become a victim to the world, and you say, everyone, because of everyone else, I can't do the thing I love. But I would guarantee that there are lots of pockets in your life where you could make time for that thing, but you just don't know how to create that habit. And so this whole habit creation thing, which I've got really into recently because I realised it's important, and that skill is enabling me to make these videos. So thank you. So it's saying if I can make a 1 minute habit where I just do 1 minute of this thing, that tiny seed, planting that tiny seed, and just keeping the watering going in the smallest possible way, in an easy way that's fun and enjoyable, keeping that going, and then just letting it come up gently. And when you're growing a rose bush, the rose bush, you've got rose seed or whatever the thing is, you start with the rose bush isn't going to just appear. Your creative, your portfolio of thousands of pieces of art, your hundreds of albums of music, they're not going to just appear. I mean, you can cheat, the people do cheat. You can find some kind of way you can go to the garden centre and buy a rose bush. You can go to some stock photo library and have, you've got all this stolen art that you've got, and you just put your own name on it or something. Or you can say, I'm going to get this seed, I'm going to put it in the soil with joy and the gratitude. Thank you, Gaia. And you're going to put it in and go boom. And then the next day comes and nothing happens. And the next day comes, nothing happens. A few weeks pass and maybe there's a little thing that comes up. Might not even come up, but you wait and it happens. You keep watering, you keep doing maybe. And then you've got a little thing and then you go, oh, where's my rose? My rose isn't here. I want to make a bouquet. My date's waiting. And a year goes by and your bush is still looking pretty thin. And you go, oh, well, okay, so this is going to take a while. But if you enjoy the process of watering, you enjoy the process of cultivating this thing, then it doesn't matter when the rose bush appears, because before you know it, the rose bush will be there. But you've just spent every day enjoying the cultivation process. So it's like enjoy the process and the journey rather than the end result, because those end results and those big successes and those big moments are very fleeting. So if you don't enjoy the rest of it, you're going to be very unfulfilled and dissatisfied and a bit sad and lonely and empty. But if you can enjoy the journey of everything and not be too bothered and too attached to the end result, then you'll always be happy. And when those end results come, it's like a nice bonus rather than the whole meaning of life, which unfortunately many people have made their life about. And a lot of these television shows make these big moments seem like the thing that everyone needs. So it's time to let go of that and say, actually, it's in these very small moments. And I realised that when I was playing, say, music, practicing for these big performances and exams and things like that, and I spent a lot of time practicing, I realised that the experience of performing in itself was fairly irrelevant. It was a kind of a nice bonus, but it was in like somewhere in the middle of the process where I'd been sort of going along, and it just starts to pick up, and you can start to play, say, the music a bit faster, or there's minimal mistakes, or you're starting to get some stuff going with it, and you're feeling like, yes, I've got this. This is sounding really good. And there's those moments where you go, well, yeah, this is what I love. And then by the time it's like polishing it at the end, or it's kind of perfect and you're trying to get it a bit more perfect, or at the very beginning it's kind of like, where's this going? And this is a bit boring. It's going, this is just what a ride that I'm on. Learning this piece of music, or, drawing this picture, or whatever the thing is, making this portfolio. I'm using examples that are easy to understand, but insert your own example in into the metaphor I'm using. Because these small steps, when you can make them fun, they lead to big things. And it's one of the things I found when I was learning Japanese, which is not necessarily a creative experience, but it was something that required a lot of patience. It required patience and perseverance and a sense of, I'm going somewhere and it doesn't matter whenever I get to this idea of fluency, because fluency was the goal. It's like, if I could get fluent. And I mean, whatever that means, it's kind of a vague concept anyway. But I knew that I was probably never going to feel confident until I just accepted that wherever I was at was better than zero. Because zero is, I could have zero Japanese, or I could have, where I'm at now, I could have a conversation with any person in Japan about anything that I'd like to, and if it was something I was interested in, I'd be able to follow along and input lots of interesting things. And if it was something that I wasn't interested in, or something that I don't know that much about, even in English, if someone starts talking about cars or something, or mechanical thingamajiggies, or engineering-y things I've not experienced necessarily, I get lost, I get bored, and I'll move on to the next conversation quite happily. And I realised I'm in that place in Japanese where my vocabulary isn't as eloquent and as complicated, and I always thought that was a handicap. It was like I was kind of like a slightly disabled kind of speaker, where I was like, just trying to find that word, and I was a bit slower than everyone else, and I felt a bit, And then I just thought, screw it. I could just... The fact that there's mistakes in my Japanese makes it more funny. And I'd say something, and they'd go, wait, what? And I'd be like, oh, wait, you don't say that? Because I just sort of invented the language in my head, sort of thing. And I go, because I'm sort of patching together what I say, and they're like, no, that sounds crazy. And I'm like, oh, we say that sort of thing in English. Like, that's weird that you don't say that. And they're like, And then we have a giggle, and we have an interesting conversation. And for the people I know, they have a richer experience with my mildly broken Japanese than they would with someone who had perfect Japanese, who was born and raised in Japan, or someone who just had that naturally good Japanese. Because the richness of the funniness of life comes through in the imperfection. It's just going, wow. And how did I get to that point? It was, I did this. I was all Japanese all the time was the method. There was this guy. I'll tell the story because I recommend it to everyone. And there's this guy who started a blog, and his idea was, he read a load of books about kind of like self-improvement stuff, and he went straight into 24 hours a day, if I can just input it into my subconscious, very quickly my subconscious is going to realize it's the most important thing, for me. And so he just had headphones, and he was doing flashcards as well. And he just had Japanese all the time. He was either going to be... He basically cut out English from his life, and he just said, I live in... other than the complete essentials. He made like his phone Japanese. He made his... everything he read, it had to be in Japanese. Everything he looked up, it had to be in Japanese. And everything he watched, films and cartoons and all that. And podcasts, people he spoke to. He's like, well, I'm only going to have Japanese friends now. And he went crazy maniac on it in a really kind of crazy, fun, experimental way. And within like a year and a half of doing that, he went to Japan, and he had like an interview with a big company in Japan, and he like aced it and went on and got employed and wrote a blog about all of this. And he just had incredible Japanese very, very soon. And he just showed that if you just go one-pointed and just do this thing all the time and just make this the priority, then it will, grow very quickly. So I went into that. And so it wasn't really about like, getting fluent. It was like, I know how to get fluent. People learn languages all the time, but what happens if I just like become a Japanese person? What will happen then? I just listen to Japanese as much as Japanese people do. Because they're not geniuses necessarily. Everyone did it. All the people in Japan were capable of learning Japanese, and most of them didn't do that much consciously to figure it all out when they were babies. It's like, let's just be a baby and pretend I'm in Japan and make this immersive environment where that's my whole thing. So I just made this big game of my life's in Japanese now, and screw the world, I'm in Japan. Even if I was in England, and this guy was in America when he did this. So one of the fun things that I did in that experience was, it was like every day I'd just go like mining or hunting, vegan hunting for new words or new grammar structures and patterns and things. And it was like, find a new pattern or find a new word, and then I'll level up by one little tiny percent. And it was like, well, if I can get 10 words every day, that's 3,650 words in a year. And combine that with and then give yourself enough listening opportunities so that you're going to hear those words that you're learning, so that you constantly hear them in context and hear how people use them in a natural way. And if you just do that like a game, you go, well, I'm just going to catch them all, catch all the words. And I started reading novels with all these really complicated words, and I go, hang on, some of my Japanese vocabulary is better than my English vocabulary. I just learn 10 words a day. And if everyone just learned 10 words a day and anything, or 10 things a day, or practice 10 things, you're going to get very, very good very quick. And it's going to be like, wow. But it was never about like, oh, one day if I can get to 10,000 words, because that's kind of like the idea. If you have 10,000 words, you've probably got enough vocabulary to deal with most situations. It's like, the 10,000 words will be irrelevant. It's like these little domains of the thing. I'm getting into how I learn Japanese. I will do a video on that though, because that would be fun. But this is a jolly episode. I realised that in a particular domain, you don't need 10,000 words. You probably need a very small amount of vocabulary. And if you were, say, wanting to figure out how to watch, like for example, with the anime sense, the Japanese cartoons, they have these these were the easiest ones to master. The idea of slice of life is the concept, and it's like very simple daily life, so that almost every scene in every one is like, the schoolboy or whatever wakes up, he goes downstairs, he goes, hey, good morning, mom, and she goes, hey, good morning, and he goes, I'm gonna go off and see you later, and she's like, see you later, itterashai kind of thing, and he goes to school and his friends complain about something, and it's like very predictable scenes ongoing, and there's like a girl he likes, and the girl says, I love you, and he's like, I love you, but I'm not, I'm not what you think I am. And she's like, oh really? Oh, and these, you basically have the same conversation about 300 different ways, but it's almost the same words, just sort of with different pictures going on. And when you watch hundreds of these things, you go, just for the purpose of language learning, you just go, hang on a minute, this is easy. They will just say the same thing over and over again, and I realised I could master that domain quite quickly. And I go, well, now I've got this basic, daily life kind of things. You go, well, the next thing that I would watch could be something similar, but maybe it's a mystery thing. So there's like anime specific language that they use. So once I've cracked that, then it's like I've got the daily life stuff. What about a mystery themed thing? And suddenly a bit more of a vocabulary level will kind of happen. Where you go, oh, they're starting to use more complicated words. But that's good because you've mastered all the other kinds of words that they use. Because in the mystery drama anime thing, they still have your daily good morning, hey, I'm just going off to the supermarket and I'm in love with you sort of stuff. But you also get like, oh, the detective has appeared, and you're like, oh, detective, I didn't know that word. And then you've cracked that thing, and then the next thing you can watch a movie about detectives or whatever, like a proper movie. And that might be a bit more complicated because now it's not anime conversations, they're a bit more basic. And now it's like, adults talking about mystery stuff, and you go, well, I learned the mystery stuff, but what about these adults having conversations? This is a whole new world. And more and more and more, and it was such a fun game. So yeah, I recommend that, but I will talk about that another time. So to round this kind of thing up, I just wanted to sort of do a bit of a sharing of my experiences with creativity, where I've experimented with lots of different things, and I've asked myself, what is it that I enjoy doing? What is it that's important to me, and what is it that I'm passionate about? And I've really, in the last few years, especially since I was away from the YouTube content thing and I was traveling, and I've been doing a lot of self-love, self-healing, self-development kind of practices, and just sort of learning about who I am and what's important. As I've gone into this, I've gone, well, out with the old and in with the new, and finding out what are the messages I really want to share, and like I said, like this self-love and the idea of peace. People need peace, but they don't realize they need peace, so they go searching for peace in all these different ways because they think that they'll get peace if they have money, or if they have security in the form of a job, or in terms of people's approval. You think you'll get that feeling of peace, that joy, but it turns out that thing will never give it to you unless you give it to yourself. So these are the kind of things I want to share. It's difficult to explain this if you don't understand it because you haven't experienced it, but yeah, I've now found that there's a series of things that I really love, They're really all creative things, and I know that every time I do them I just get filled with joy, and it's such a such a fun thing to be able to even do them. It's a gift that I can do these things, and I've given myself the permission and the courage to just kind of go for it with some of these things, because I've enjoyed designing things and editing things like videos. I love playing music and kalimba and guitar and the piano music, which you might have noticed is the thing that's playing in the backgrounds of these videos. So which I really love, and I've spent a good year or so really getting into gardening and growing things, and that's something that I just want to share more and more. And it's there's been a lot of things that have fallen away that I've realised that don't mean anything to me and that I don't want to pursue. Drawing is one of those things that I always see as like, it's a fun little thing occasionally, but it's never really been my thing, that I always come to in a sanctuary kind of way. And I've always loved writing books and writing stories and poetry and things. There's been this sort of channeling the energy into that. Recently I made this website, and it's been this kind of big idea that came to me where I just said I want to have a platform, a place where I can share all these things I love and the messages that are really important to me, like the idea of organic, healthy, more sort of natural living, more minimal and simple, that's kind to the earth, being kind to ourselves and our bodies, and obviously kind to the animals, and having these kind of deep principles running through life, and saying, if we could start again, if we could build a new world and create this heaven on earth kind of experience that people pray for, what would that look like? And my version of it looks like what I'm trying to build with having a website kind of thing, and doing it like that. So I've realized there's all these things I love. I've loved tea. If people ever listen to my old podcasts, you realize that tea has been this big part of my life, where the reason why I started learning Japanese and going to Japan was because I just loved tea so much. When I tried Japanese tea, it almost made me cry with joy, and I was like, all these different kinds of new teas. And I had a friend, and we shared a lot about that. Have a friend. And when I'm drinking tea, I feel in that sort of sanctuary space. And I don't mean the sort of caffeinated beverages. I'm talking more about herbal teas and infusions, sort of from plants. You pick the herbs, and I was really blessed that I got to experience like volunteering on a tea farm when I was in Japan, and I got to experience tea ceremony when I was in Japan. I got to experience drinking all the teas I ever wanted. I had a period about a year or two ago where I just bought a big load of herbs, different kinds of herbs, and experimented, to my heart's content, of making all these different kind of herbal tea blends and different things. And out of that came a load of recipes, and ideas and things, going, what would happen if I put pineapple pieces with chamomile? What would that be like? And it was like, it's actually sweet and nice. It's relaxing and a bit fruity and relaxing. It's like, and all these beautiful ideas came, and it's been this big passion. And now I've gone, I love tea so much, I need to start sharing it with people, because the world needs to feel this. And obviously there's some people who don't resonate with it, but this resonance thing is going, if it does resonate with you, welcome to my cave, the heart cave, because Michael's heart cave is full of very delicious things. So yeah, I've started sharing that. I'm selling the teas now a bit. People like the teas. What was the other thing? I've got basically a giant book that I've been writing for a very long time, and that book is like my life's work of wisdom, of all the things I've experienced and all the practices and things and everything that's just really juicy. And it's a very big load of stuff, and I have all many notebooks full of all these kind of things and ideas I've just had in my sort of brainstorming sessions and sort of diary entry things and big things that are hard to explain in a sort of summary sense, but most of the stuff that's in that is forming the curriculum that you're all listening to now in the form of these videos. So it's all the stuff that's just in that. So I really want to get that into a form that's shareable. I'm doing it through this, but I want to make it into something that's readable. Whether I make it into small pieces of a series of books or a series of articles or a series of audios, audios or something, because it's valuable, because it's the stuff that's got me to the happy place I'm in. So yeah, I want to share that in some way. Gardening things is the thing where it's such this beautiful creative art that the world really needs. The idea of making your own food, it brings you such a sense of joy and safety and gratitude, and it's like the healthiest thing you can have, and you're loving yourself and you're loving the earth and you're having gratitude for everything, and you know it's the kindest possible thing you can do really when you're growing. You know, you take the seed and you put it in the ground and you just let it all blossom. And I want to share a lot on that. It's not something I've mastered, I'm still learning, but it's the learning is beautiful. And I want to share it because I know, the organic thing is very important to me. Having these sort of natural ingredients and caring for the body, and, you know, being in the natural sunlight and having all the natural elements in me. You know, being as much as possible away from the technology and having a more balanced life where we're grounded and we're connected to the earth and this healing energy, and connected to the animals, and feeling this harmony, because that's what the world really needs, because we've become very disconnected from our true natures that thrive in the natural environments like forests and oceans, and the natural waters with the sunshine, and all these things are very healing and balancing, and they provide our body with the kind of nourishment that no food in the supermarket can give us. And so I want to bring people back to prioritizing that in their life. Yeah, and I wanted to share that connection to music with people. The energy you can have from singing and dancing, and there's this the kind of Indian devotional chanting called like kirtan that people do, where you're singing kind of holy songs and having a good dance. People have like a harmonium or some guitars and things, and just really letting it all go. And with these very sacred Sanskrit and like Tibetan or Hebrew or whatever sort of words, frequencies that people allow, and you start singing these things and you go, whoa, it's like something's coming through me. Or, you feel these big deep energies coming through, and I love doing that, because when I've done that, when I've traveled and when I've spoke to people and shared these kinds of sacred spaces, is going into this deep this musical tribal place where we're just home, and we're here, and we're powerful, and we're sovereign, and we're alive, because life is eternal. Human life is fleeting. These transient things are experiencing transient bodies and things, but life, that vital life force, that flow of everythingness, music unlocks that, I think. So yeah, get into that space. So I'm going to share my music. Basically, I've made lots of recordings of my piano, and I've got recordings of other instruments and things, and maybe even singing, because I do have a bit of that. So we'll see where that goes. But I have lots of music I have hundreds and hundreds of recordings of my music, so I'm going to start uploading that in a way where people can download it, and I make some albums and things that people can buy. Because there's just such an abundance of that. I've got loads that I've done in the past, but now I have a better recording setup that's easy, and I have a good recording flow. It's just letting it all flow out, because now I'm in this big abundant space where I can actually sit down and go, the music's there. I've got hundreds of hours worth of music I can just play. It's just there. I improvise and it just comes out, and it's really beautiful. None of it's perfect in the sense of virtuosic, grandiose stuff that people get impressed by, but it's like, this takes me home. And I always made video CDs and things for friends, beings I love, just to share that music so that they would have something to relax to at night time, or if they were feeling sort of stress or something. And I love having that ability to be able to share so much healing and so much love with people through the medium of music. And the other thing was, I started making all of these little, what do you call it? Toiletries isn't really the word. It's nourishing I say balms, it's all these nourishing oils and blends and preparations, these things that you can treat like you would food, where you're allowing it to nourish the temple and nourish the system, and allow only, the highest quality, most natural things filled with love. When I make these things, I'm singing to them. and I know they're powerful. There's power to that, because when you're infusing something with that level of love, it's very different to things that are made in factories. And that's why this idea of handmade things and people coming, into craft markets and the handmade things, I've loved it, because it's, even if it's something that, people are just sort of mass producing in the basement or something, it's got some realness to it, rather than a factory has this very obligatory kind of experience, where as soon as you get into mass production, the infusion of love becomes a bit sort of lower, and the world is lacking that kind of thing. Which is the same with the foods that we produce, because when you tell the food you love it, it grows bigger. It really grows bigger, and everyone would benefit from having some herbs in their windowsill, and just telling the herbs you love it. And there's this beautiful there's this Dr. Emoto. He made these cards where he said words to water, and he did a thing with rice as well. He said words to the water, and then they took sort of microscopic photos of the frozen water, and it had all these different shapes. If you said like I love you, or you said I don't like you, I hate you, and you say these kinds of words, and the water looks scary when you've said these more sort of negative words, and the water looks beautiful and holy and sacred when they say more these sort of prayers, and these kind of or they played music to the water. They played like Mozart, or they played heavy metal, and it had a different kind of shape, and it's saying, well, and they took rice, and the rice, they said loving things to the rice, and it looked quite good after a month or so, and then the other rice that was said negative things, it went all moldy and brown. And you can do these experiments, and I think there is really a power in the mind and the thought and the intention that we put into things. So the thing that's most beautiful about the sort of skincare and things that I make and share is that it's got so much love that's coming out of me, because it's beyond the idea of, I don't need to sell it. I mean I give these things away because I just love it, and it's my joy and my passion. And I want the world to be full of people who have passions and feelings of purpose and things they love, and out of the extension of what they love, they come to share it, and that becomes the platform that is their marketplace. The new way of beings extending out their creativity to the world becomes the way we heal ourselves, because these mass-produced chemical-filled products, they toxify our bodies, and they have a big burden on our system, which de-energizes us rather than nourishes us. And if we can have a system where the world is full of an abundance of nourishing foods and nourishing skincare and nourishing music, nourishing drinks and beverages, water, things that are infused with joy. If we have a world that's full of that kind of joy and peace, what a happy, healthy world we'll be in. And so I'm creating that, and you're all invited to come into my sanctuary. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing the vision. Thanks for sharing the dream. And here's to the beautiful, happy, peaceful, vegan, heavenly world that we already live in. And it's available to us. We just have to step into it and accept that it's ours. And I'm creating that, and just you try and stop me. But you can come along, because here it is. Anyway, I love you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.